All right, so on our third segment here, we're talking about strategy for networking, how to do it effectively. This is so important. If you understand effective strategy, you're going to put yourself in a much better position to land your dream job, right? And have this
Yeah.
be something that works towards your advantage. I've got so many examples of clients that are getting offers right now or close to getting offers or have already negotiated great offers with companies because they leveraged a personal connection or they uh, established a connection with somebody on LinkedIn. So really, really key component to nailing the interview that you want and getting your offer is the strategy. Kemet, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so it all ties together from the beginning, what we talked about, to the end. Building relationships is what you're doing, right? And everybody knows that the majority of people who get jobs get them from people they know, get them from through friends. So what you're trying to do when you're networking is create that network of people who you can draw on and who can draw on you. And I think the only way to do that is to focus on the them drawing on you piece, right? Because that's something you can control. And so I think that the way that you should approach strategy when talking about networking is not from the standpoint of, how to, the strategy rather shouldn't be that you go out and, try to mine everyone who you talk to for information or, for leads. It should be immediately establishing a relationship where you've done something for them. So I know that in my own personal experience with networking, if you can interact with someone and solve a problem they have, which may be easy for you, you may be in a position to do that for them with no downside for yourself. You can solve someone's problem or even give them a resource that helps them with something that they're struggling with. You're already immediately in the category of people that they will recommend, that they will offer opportunities to, and that they'll do things for if asked. So I think that doing things for other people in that situation is going to be the best bet for then later having them do things for you.
Yeah, this brings to mind a client of mine who identified his dream job, and he happened to have a contact at that company. So he scheduled a conversation, and we spent a session strategizing about how to have this conversation, how to articulate his value, right? And so he got very clear on his personal brand and what his narrative was going to be, right? How he's packaging himself and how he can help the other guy's organization. So what happened was the other guy walked away from that meeting with a very clear sense of what this guy could do to help him and his department out in the area of strategy for their events business. And as a result, he's moving along in the interviewing process. He's being connected to all the right people. And it's like all of a sudden, all these doors have opened up because he said the right things in the right way to somebody who was ready and willing to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you said it in our last video, but the fact that, if you get people to trust you and to relate to you in some way, then, they're automatically more just predisposed to want to help you, when the time comes. And I think that if you look at the times that you've done things for people selflessly, the only thing that ever happens is good things in return. So that's a very, obviously, it's kind of truism, right? But it is true. It's one of those things that is based on the interactions of how people work in the world. Like they're always going to want to help you if you help them. And so I think the more specific you can make it, like the more that you can nail down a specific way that you can help them, the better it is for you in the long run. And I think one of the easiest ways to do that is just to provide your knowledge. So if you have knowledge on a subject that someone else doesn't have, if you're in a networking situation, you're always going to have something that they don't have, and that may be of use to them. And that's just something that's lying, sitting around in your brain that you don't even think about. I feel like it's a good strategy to schedule time with people after, the strategic people who you find to be interesting enough that you want to keep communicating with them. You can then schedule time where you can help them with something. You can say, hey, I got 15 minutes where I can walk you through this process of whatever, whatever career domain you're in. And that to people is invaluable. It makes them like you. It makes them want to help you. It makes them, basically keep you in mind when they think of someone who's a problem solver, which is what you want possible employers or possible coworkers to think of you.
Yeah, you want to be mindful of the impressions that you're leaving, right? You might have 15 minutes. And so you got to get very clear on that one point that you want to leave them with, right? So I had another client that got an offer recently for a position with a skincare company. She was very interested in transitioning into this new line of work, but she didn't quite know how. So we came up with a list of target companies, and then we executed a LinkedIn networking campaign that was partly automated. So she's just sending these messages out, but she's sending these messages in a specific and personalized way to showcase her interest and her experience in skincare and with the skill set required. And as a result, she got a conversation set up with somebody at the skincare company that really enjoyed the conversation and got her into the interviewing process, which resulted in an offer. So again, if you're just clear on your messaging, like why they should talk to you and why they should care, people are going to be responsive. This woman was immediately responsive because my client just put together a really nicely crafted message that articulated why they should talk.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts on the strategy of networking, Khemit?
Yeah, well, you're more the strategy guy than I, more so than I am as far as career stuff is concerned. But I think the basic strategies of building relationships in general translate across the board. So for me, at more of a high level, it's really a matter of going into networking with the right mindset. If you go into a networking event or situation with the mindset of, okay, I have to get something out of this, I really need to nail this, like it's an interview, you're going to be nervous, you're going to be off your game, and you'll be putting out messages that you don't want to be putting out when you're trying to interact with new people. So I think it's really helpful to try to reframe the problem as an opportunity and as a place where you can leverage your social skills and your knowledge for possible gain in the future. So don't go into it too. Don't be too needy, I guess, in a networking situation.
Yeah, that's why it's important to understand and remember these are informational interviews. They're not interviews, and you're not trying to get interviews. You're just trying to gather some information and represent yourself in a particular way that will leave an impression. And as a result, the relationship will be nurtured. And as a result of that, it's just going to naturally happen that they're going to give you some advice. And they're going to let you know if there are interviews coming up. And if they really like you, they'll introduce you to the hiring manager. They'll just do it all on their own. So you don't actually have to ask for it. And you don't even need that because you're just there to establish the relationship first and foremost. So that's it. That is the conclusion of our 3-part series on networking. Join us next time for our next topic.
Sounds good, man.